All right, let's get started here, and other folks can join in as they wish. Hi, everybody. I'm Lanisha Adams, and I'm the outgoing chair of the division. Why don't we start with a round of introductions? I know we all know each other, but since it's being recorded and for posterity, let's say where we are in the world and something interesting. I'm based in Washington, D.C., and my baby, who was born last year, is now 1. So I'll pass to Sue.
Hi there. Let me just turn my camera on. I'm new here. I am in Waterloo, Ontario, and something interesting. I run. Sure.
And just pick someone to go next.
Frank, he's next to me.
All right, thanks, Sue. Hi, Frank Ridzi. I'm in Syracuse, New York at Lemoyne College and Central New York Community Foundation. And something interesting is we got a COVID dog who is getting us running. He doesn't have COVID. We just got him during COVID. And that's why we call him a COVID dog. And he's gotten me out running. So he likes to walk in the morning and started me running again. So I'll pass it to who's next to me, Catherine Jenkins.
Hi everybody, I'm from Wales, South Wales in the UK, and something interesting. I also have got a COVID dog, and yeah, he makes such a difference to well-being. And he's got ridiculously big ears, which poor thing, they're almost bigger than his head, so he looks quite interesting. Oh, and I'll pass it to Marge.
You're muted.
Okay, I'm usually better at that. I'm Marge DeVault. I am retired from Syracuse University for 5 or 6 years now, and I live on Cape Cod in Massachusetts in the town of Brewster. And I think the most interesting thing about me lately is that I've taken up pastel painting. And I'll pick Janet.
Hi. Thanks, Marge. I'm Janet Rankin. I work at the University of Calgary in Alberta. I'm currently in Quesnel, British Columbia. And the thing that's been most interesting in my life, I guess, over the past 3 weeks is I have been dog sitting for my sister living in her home on the lake. So getting out of the city and feeling very attached to this little creature who I've been caring for. And I'll pass to Paul.
Hi, I'm Paul Lucan, and I am retired faculty from the University of West Georgia, and I still live in West Georgia among the trees. And the most interesting thing in my life right now is that I became a cyborg on Tuesday. So that's it. And I'll pass to Eric.
You're not going to explain that, Paul, the cyborg?
I got a pacemaker.
Oh, gotcha.
And it's exciting. It feels great.
That's good. I'm glad it feels great.
Yeah.
I'm Eric Michalowski. I'm calling from Toronto, Canada, where this is a long weekend. So I'm not going to stay here too long because it is our one long weekend. And not much interesting, although last night was the first in-person dinner at someone's house, with good food for the first time in, a very, very long time. So that was kind of great. Oh, I'll pass to Katie.
Hi, everyone. My name is Katie Koroleski. I'm a doctoral student in the Animal Welfare Program at the University of British Columbia here in Vancouver. Something interesting about me, I just moved, so it took me a second to find my pen this morning. sorry. I will pass to Sue. I'm sorry, did you go yet?
I did, yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
That's okay.
Pass to Kate.
Hello, I'm Kate Harden. I'm a PhD student at McGill. Very new here, so it's lovely to see you all. And since I joined late, I don't know who to pass to, so if someone wants to help me out with that, that would be fabulous.
Shall I go? Hi, I'm Jim Reid from the University of Huddersfield, and I'm currently sitting at home in Leeds in the UK, where it's nice and sunny, and just past 4 in the afternoon. Something interesting, my stepdaughter had her second baby this week, 8 pounds 9 ounces, so fantastic news. And I'm not, again, this is the trick bit, isn't it? Now, who's not gone yet?
Me. Okay, I will go. My name is Frank Wang. I'm based in Taipei, Taiwan. Now it's midnight here in Asia. And the most interesting things happen now is that we are all watching the Olympic game, and Taiwan just won the badminton double. And these two, even though they did not come out, but they act just like a gay couple. So everybody's talking about it, and everybody's very excited about they get the gold. So everybody's very excited. Thank you. Nice to see you all. Is there anyone not being called?
I can go. I haven't.
Rashmi and Colin.
Colin, yes, please.
Hi, everyone. It's great to see you all this morning, especially folks who are new to the group. It's really nice to meet you. I am calling from Toronto, where I'm visiting my parents. I'm a postdoc researcher at Concordia University in Montreal, but I'm visiting my parents in Toronto this weekend. And something interesting is that a nice part of this trip with this sort of maybe nice, little bit more open COVID period in Toronto, like Eric was saying, is that I got to visit my grandmother yesterday in her retirement home, who is 94. It was the first time I'd seen her in 6 or 7 months, and that was really nice. And yeah, I'll pass it over to Rashmi.
Thank you, Colin. Good morning, everyone. My name is Rashmi Karnatjani, and I am a student of Alison Griffith. I would like to begin by thanking everyone who's helped me since the SSSP conference in Montreal, because it was quite a challenge to do my institutional ethnography at the University of Toronto, OISE, without having the presence of my mentor and my teacher with me. So thank you to everyone who's reached out and supported me. The most interesting thing I'm actually calling from Markham. So I'm on the traditional territories of the Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabeg people, whose presence here continues to this day. I work as a kindergarten to grade 12 special education consultant in the York Region District School Board in the Greater Toronto area. And the interesting thing that has happened is this is my first summer in 10 years when I'm not doing teaching summer school and doing academic reading and writing, because it was first the MEd and then the PhD. So I've been growing tomatoes, eggplant, potatoes, and raising monarch caterpillars, because I have a huge milkweed patch in my backyard. And that's been very, very fulfilling. It's wonderful to be here with everyone. And I look forward to this meeting and the conference ahead. Thank you.
Rashmi, am I correct that you recently finished your PhD, right?
Yes, I did.
Congratulations. Thank
you so much. Thank you very much.
Awesome. And then not sure, Cheryl, if you
I haven't gone yet, so I'll
yep. Hi.
Michelle comes
Hi,
on.
Dr. Vaughn.
Okay. Okay, my name is Suzanne Vaughn. I am retired from Arizona State University. The most exciting thing is that last summer our monsoon never came and we had so little rain. And in the last 2 weeks, it's rained, it's rained, it's rained, and it is so wonderful. Thank you.
Cheryl, you're up next if you're ready to, if you can hear us. I think she just muted.
There. Sorry for joining late. I'm dyslexic about time zones. I had 2 p.m. Pacific time down on my calendar. And so the reason I'm not showing my camera is that I'm having an incredibly bad hair day. Haven't showered yet, but I'm glad I figured out my dyslexia and was able to join at least a little late.
Awesome. Tell us where you're based and something interesting.
Oh yes, I'm on Vancouver Island, Canada, about midway in a town called Qualicum Beach. And Suzanne, we're anxiously waiting for rain. We've got severe drought conditions here, forest fires throughout the province, and rain has tempted us a couple of times in the forecast, but hasn't materialized. We're patiently waiting.
We'll blow it up there, okay?
That would be appreciated.
Awesome. So I'm just gonna say it's been a great couple of years. Being the chair, I think things were a little compounded with COVID unexpectedly. I think for all of us, and just extra angst and paranoia with 2 small children in diapers. That made, and then having a baby during the pandemic, that just made things a little bit crazier than what I anticipated when I said yes to this opportunity before I even was with child. So it's been an exciting time. And I would be lying if I didn't say I was not very eager and excited to pass the baton to Dr. Colin Hastings. So without further ado, I'll let you introduce yourself and then we'll keep moving through the agenda here, but passing to you, Colin.
Thank you so much for that, Lanisha. I just want to start by saying on behalf of the whole division, a huge thank you to the incredible amount of work you've done as the division chair, and especially during such exceptionally difficult times. I know both personally and just in the worlds that we're living in. As you know, Lanisha did a lot of work for our division that extended well beyond the scope of the SSSP conference, particularly coordinating virtual sessions during the height of the pandemic and physical distancing that offered, I think, a really important space for us to connect with a supportive academic space and to try to come together collectively to make sense of what we're witnessing in the world around us. And I think that was just a really nice respite during very difficult times. So thank you so much for that, Lanisha. And as we've started to have discussions about sort of handing over the chair position, I've been so inspired by the ideas that Lanisha has for the future activities of this group. And I'm just going to try very hard to not drop the ball on those in the next couple of years. Since we started this transition, I've also had the opportunity to kind of start seeing behind the scenes of SSSP. And I don't think it'll come as a surprise that a lot of the organizers of the conference hold up aspects of the IDE division as like a model for other parts of the organization. And this is entirely thanks to Lanisha and other folks like Gina and Jane who work on the newsletter, and past chairs of the division who have done so much to really foster this as a supportive, generative space that I know a lot of us have benefited from immensely. So I'm really looking forward to working with you all to continue that, to build that together over the next couple of years.
Awesome. Thank you. Sweet. And then Marge, I don't know if you want to go next to introduce us to the award recipients.
Yes, I guess there are other awards, but I chaired the committee which decided on the Dorothy Smith Award for Scholar Activism. And this is an award that recognizes the activities of an individual or group who's made substantial contributions to IE scholar activism. And we had an especially strong group of nominees this year, and the committee insisted that we should give 2 awards. So we have 2 Franks present in the meeting. And coincidentally, the 2 Franks are the winners of this year's award. I'll just talk a little bit about each of these wonderful scholars because they've each engaged in IE scholar activism in somewhat different ways. Frank Wong is a longtime member of the international IE community. And I have to say, I'm always just so pleased when I see that he's decided to come to the SSSP, which he's done many times. He started his IE journey as a social work student at the University of Toronto in the 1990s. And some of you may remember a very memorable talk he gave at, I think it was the ISA, about how IE helped him find his voice. It was wonderful. Frank's research has focused on long-term care and social work practice in Aboriginal communities. He's also studied support for people with disabilities, and he's researched and been a real leader in LGBT life and community in Taiwan. In addition to writing scholarly articles, he's drawn on IE in a number of projects conducted with and for these communities. And he serves on the boards of several NGOs devoted to activist causes. He's spoken publicly about his identity as a gay man in Taiwan and offered support and encouragement to youth in the LGBTQ community. In 2020, because he's just continuing to expand his activist activities, in 2020, the central government of Taiwan appointed Frank as a board member of the Transitional Justice Commission, which is charged with making political archives more readily available, removing authoritarian symbols, and redressing racial injustice. So what we wanted to do was to recognize this trajectory of a very inspiring, a very effective, and a sustained career of using IE in the service of people on the margins of Frank's society. Thank you, Frank Wong.
Thank you. Thank you, Marge. Thank you for this wonderful introduction. I think this is the best award that I can receive as an activist scholar. And as Marge mentioned, that I decided to become an activist even before I decided to become a scholar, but I got lost in my journey. But I bring back my own voice and to start my research from my own activist work. And if there is any reward in the journey, I think that would be the people and the friendship which enrich my life forever. And thank you, IE divisions. And in a time when it become more and more difficult to become a scholar and activist, I think we need to be a community, and with your support that we can be stronger by being together. And thank you.
Thank you, Frank. So let me now turn to Frank Ridzi. Frank, as he said, teaches at Lemoyne University and also works as vice president for community investment at the Central New York Community Foundation. He's been concerned since his dissertation research with the effects of public policy on people's everyday lives. And he's adopted IE in a very interesting and creative way in his philanthropic work. He's been working with others, with local agencies, local activist groups, and with refugee groups in a city with a burgeoning refugee population, many of whom are crowded into older substandard housing. And a group of activists in his city began to investigate the problem of lead poisoning coming from paint chips and dust in older housing units. Frank worked with actors in various different groups and began to use IE, not as a formal project, but in his thinking about how to address and ameliorate the problem of lead paint poisoning. He began to map the institutional relations that give rise to the problem and that posed obstacles to amelioration. And he was able, doing his mapping, to identify policy changes that have happened in the city, and also to identify opportunities for philanthropic intervention that could be pursued by the Community Foundation. As an added bonus, Frank has written this all up in a wonderful chapter in the new Handbook of Institutional Ethnography. And so we thought this was a particularly creative way of using IE in an activist effort, and wanted to recognize what Frank Ridzi has done in that regard. So thank you, Frank.
Thank you, Marge, and thank you to the committee. I think the biggest thanks, though, goes to IE and the network of scholars that have really helped me. I knew that I wanted to be involved in making change for the better and shifting power relationships in my community to actually benefit people's lives. But once I got into the philanthropic field, it's so easy to just get quickly lost. And I realized I didn't know which end was up. But thanks to the continued support of the IE community and reminding me of the roots, texts, mapping, I was able to sort of reorient myself. And then it really helped to create an agenda in places where I knew I had no personal expertise, but people in the community did. And they really led us to use philanthropic resources in very new ways. And it inspired the continuation to where we just recently launched a completely different project, the Black Equity and Excellence Fund, in which the foundation completely gave over its grant-making authority to an all-Black council. And that's another example of where IE really helped us map the power relations and be like, oh, these are really power relations. And even the CEO is now talking about giving over power and authority, words that I think are kind of anathema to the philanthropic world. So I really credit IE and the network for helping make that work possible in our community and making this a better community. So thank you.
Fabulous. Well, I just want to say it was a pleasure to chair this committee, and I should also thank the other two committee members, Suzanne Vaughn and Naomi Nichols. So, thank you.
Awesome. For this year, there was no student paper awardee. The committee felt as though I don't think they received very many submissions. I think, in fact, they only received maybe one submission. So the George W. Smith Graduate Student Paper Award was not graduate student paper wasn't awarded. So I guess that transitions us into, and congratulations to Frank and Frank, and awesome for Frank for joining us so early and late at night. As we go into the discussion of agenda item number 3, organization of the 2022 paper panels, just a couple things. One is it's in LA. They're still planning on it being in person, not hybrid, completely in person. I don't know how things will shift and change. Hopefully things get under control with this new variant and new variants on the horizon potentially. But it's the 72nd meeting, and it's from August 5th to the 7th. And the theme is the sociological reimagination from moments to momentum. It's a nice kind of concept, especially after the last couple of years of not meeting in person. And so maybe we can gain some momentum to build and to keep pushing forward. Frank and Eric, I know you both are probably going to leave earlier than this meeting ends. And so I wanted to, and for everybody, open up the discussion around ideas that you might have for this 2022 session. And right now we don't have anything on the books, although a couple of people have emailed ideas. I'll talk about those in a second. And then 3 divisions have reached out to co-sponsor with us. So let's talk about the ideas, then we can talk about the structure. And so, yeah, I wanted to open the floor for discussion on this item.
So just to clarify, Linish, are you asking for like session ideas or are they other ideas?
Session ideas, yes.
Okay.
Topics, titles.
Well, I had this, oh, the Colin will have the same suggestion as me. Go ahead,
Well,
Colin.
maybe. Yeah, so I've been asked by a group of graduate students and early career researchers located largely outside of York University, but also other universities in Ontario, for a session at the upcoming SSSP conference that would focus on reflections on what actually doing an IE doctoral dissertation looks like. And I think that folks are looking for a little bit more of a sort of nuts and bolts, like a less sort of maybe theoretical question about what is your problematic, or how do you develop a research question, to just maybe less formal account of like, what does it actually look like to do this work? And I recognize that there are some ways that this may overlap with the sort of conversations that happen in the workshop. But I think something that is maybe more widely accessible and open to everyone at the conference, where folks who are at the early stages of their career can reflect on what this would look like, would be really useful to a lot of folks. So yes, that was the message and likely the same one that Eric was going to bring forward, that I've been asked to share.
Got it. Thinking of it as a critical dialogue, not necessarily as like a formal paper discussion panel.
Yeah, I feel like I'm kind of brokering between this group and folks on this call a little bit. I think the original request was for sort of a more traditional conference. Sorry, the terminology is, the SSSP terminology is giving, but the one that's not a critical dialogue, the one that's a little bit more of a formal conference presentation, in the hopes that people who are presenting would have a little bit more space to give a more detailed account of what their process was like. And of course, then leaving opportunities for discussions to continue during the Q&A and perhaps at the workshop following the conference as well.
So could that be tied, Colin, to like moment to moment to the theme, for example, because it seems to me that often as you're working, you go here, then you go there, then you go here, you go there. And it might be a nice way to tie this particular session to moment. What do you think?
I think that's a fantastic idea. Yeah, I think thinking about sort of moments to moment throughout the dissertation process, of which there are, high highs and low lows, is a really useful idea. So I think that's great.
Ellen, do you think that folks are interested in hearing from people who have done IE dissertations recently, or mentors, or
I think
some combination? I mean, because you could approach it from either side.
I think a range of different stages would be really useful. I think also having folks on the panel who do IE research and also perhaps supervise IE research or are on committees to share the sort of range of experiences that they've seen from students who might not be on the panel. I think that would be great.
I don't know if there's any more talk about this particular session, but I'd also like to submit a session about activism. It seems important to me to bring out that activism part of institutional ethnography. And there are a number of people who are working in activism in various different ways. And I think it would be nice to highlight those. I want to ask you, Frank Wang, okay. I want to ask you, all right, the meetings are going to be in LA. Okay, so would that mean that a lot of people from, Asia might attend? Do you think? I don't know, but there are a number of people, for example, in Australia that I'm aware of that are doing some activist work. There are people perhaps that in Taiwan that are doing activist work. And it might be nice, since LA would be the setting, that we could encourage people to, in fact, attend SSSP from that part of the world.
LA is much closer, but I think it's the budget that required to make the flight. And for the activists in Taiwan, for them to do the presentation in English, that's another barrier. They will use IE in their activism, but to make it English report, that will be another. They need a lot of support in order to do that. But we can try to invite some to come, and also someone from Australia, the Pacific Asia Ring. We can try to invite people to come. And I do support the idea of activism of IE because that seems to be get lost in the way. And not just people from Asia, but also from the North America. Naomi has done a lot of work on this. And I certainly will try to do that if there's a session like this.
Frank, one thing I do know several years ago, and I can't remember what year it was, but I organized a session that we wanted to bring activists in where they do not necessarily have travel support, and our division in institutional ethnography helps support some of that, along with SSSP, because they are very interested in trying to bring in activists to the organization. So, I mean, it could be a joint kind of effort to kind of recruit monies to help many of these people come. That would be my suggestion.
Okay.
Yeah, one of the ideas that I received from Morena was that, who sits on the transnational initiatives committee, was that they wanted to do co-sponsor with IE a session, a panel on comparative IE research of some kind. Now I can negotiate that, and then maybe we can get SSSP to help add some funds to that pool so that we have representation and funds available for folks. That's a good idea, Suzanne and Frank.
Sorry, Lanisha, how many panels are we trying to fill in?
So we have 3 IE specific that are just for us, and then up to 7 that are co-sponsored with other divisions.
Okay.
And right now we have 1, 2, 3 folks who are interested in co-sponsoring with us. And I only have, I think, 3 ideas down from our group. But the divisions that are interested in co-sponsoring with us are educational problems. And they wanted to the working title for them is something like reconceptualizing educational opportunities, challenging inequality and creating equity. And then the other division that wanted to express interest was environment and technology, something around responding to crises. And then the last one was the transnational group. Yes, so Rashmi, I was thinking about this as we were talking. So SSSP as a body doesn't want to get into the business of the technological part of a hybrid session, but we can, as a division, do whatever we want. And I think, we have the capacity, like, someone can come, like, depending on who's organizing that session and who's on it and where they are in the world and all of this, we could self-organize to have it be hybrid at the physical conference. So I would definitely say that, yes, we could take that on, and I would be happy to help coordinate that with whomever it might be, because we have a few things going, right? The session deadline, the call for paper deadline now has been pushed up to January 15th. They spend many months coordinating the schedule. So we'd have to work with the office, the program office, to make sure that the time was good for if we're doing it in Taiwan or wherever in the world. And so there's some coordinative pieces, but I think we could totally do it.
So then am I correct in understanding that maybe for the IE specific ones, we have one on the moment to moment of dissertation research or IE research, one on IE and activism that Frank Wong brought forward. And there was also a message from Matthew Strang looking for a panel on health work, IE and health work. And I suppose that one could either be co-sponsored with a number of different divisions that would make a lot of sense, or that one could be more IE specific.
Can I share an idea? It's just one that popped into my head thinking about moments to momentum, and also thinking about the session that I've organized and that Frank Wong will participate in next week on IE in support of decolonization. I would like to continue the notion of highlighting or foregrounding the way IE can play a part in making change that benefits Indigenous people. And I'm thinking about moments to momentum. I think there is some momentum building in many jurisdictions. And I'm also thinking about Susan Turner and Julia Bombray's chapter in the handbook, and would like to maybe see if we can get some papers that showcase the kind of change that is happening for Indigenous people with the support of, or with the use of IE research. My only hesitation is that I had to invite all participants to the session next week. So I don't know how many researchers are focusing on this out there, but I have a personal interest in continuing to explore IE and Indigenous people.
I guess to piggyback off of that idea, I've also been thinking about BIPOC as an idea, as a category, but I don't necessarily like the label as much. But I do like this idea of something around voices that are often not prioritized or not dominant, or I don't know what the phraseology is, but something like this, because I think it's the indigeneity component is really important, I think, in North America and other parts of the world. I also think that we don't, as IEers, I would say that we don't necessarily collectively talk about these issues at the forefront, although it's not exclusive. It's just, I think, based on people's interests and also what bubbles to the surface. So I like this idea of prioritizing this piece around indigeneity, but I would like to also add other groups to that, maybe voices that aren't as commonly discussed. I don't know how this phrase would work, and also I haven't had much caffeine, so my synapses are not firing like they should be, but I hope I conveyed the idea, some aspect of the idea that I am having.
Lanisha, I just wanted to kind of, as you were speaking, I was thinking of the work that Farzana Chase has done in terms of the social organization of work of mothers in South Asian communities, or a recent paper that Rastul had written as well about Indigenous students and admissions to higher education or even post-secondary education. And I was also thinking in terms of the standard North American family as an understanding gives the framework of naming up to a point, but doesn't at that time. And I've had long conversations with Dorothy during my doctoral dissertation work. And I've spoken about, because I work along Roxana Ing and Himani Banerjee's work around common sense sexism and racism, and how I experience it as a brown woman in the work that I do in education and things like that. So I think we have that framework within the IE understanding of standard North American family in the work that we do. It's just perhaps also a matter of opening up the conversation and not leaving IE to be a race neutral way of thinking, right? Because many of us do enter that space and are able to talk about it and speak to it. And that would make it the lived experience of positioning the researcher alongside the work that we've done. And there's many who've done that. I mean, Lewis has done that with the school choice, and things like that. So perhaps that is one way to move forward in terms of, and partnering perhaps with the education groups too, to talk about streaming and things like that, because those conversations are happening quite a bit in Ontario and in Canada. And another thought was, given the, you cannot talk about critical race theory and the conversation that's happening in the United States around take this out and take that out of the conversation. If we position SNAF as a way of looking at things, then there is room to do that work. And foreground an understanding of how are texts preventing people from various groups from engaging in what they can do. So even something like checking off a box on an immigration form, how does that prevent you from going into education at another stage? Many would have that lived experience also, and this is a way of naming it and bringing it forward. This is a very rambling kind of conversation in my mind, but I can bring it down to a more concise piece and share it with everyone, perhaps via email. Thank you.
Marge, you had something up, but Eric, I think, has been raising his hand here, and then I'll go to you, Marge. Eric?
Thank you. I have a suggestion, because these panels are partly, how do you think about what you do with these panels? What you want to create panels that people can submit papers to, right? That will work. But you also want panels that push things in different directions, which I think is what's happening in this discussion now, which I think is very important. And in that spirit, I would want to propose for consideration a panel that would perhaps be called something like mapping intersections across institutions, because a lot of the work that gets presented here is like, there's a panel on health, there's a panel on education, there's a panel on social work, there's a panel on this, there's a panel on that, which we need because that's what people, that's how the discipline is organized in terms of subdisciplines, etc. But there's far less work in IE that is looking at how institutional relations cut across these various functional complexes. And this is part of what actually, not that I'm trying to advertise our paper, but this is part of what Colin and I are going to be discussing later. And so I would want to suggest that as a possibility for consideration.
Yeah, I think that cuts across a few different, all of our disciplines and focus areas. Would you want that to be IE specific or co-sponsored or?
I kind of think it would probably be IE specific, I suspect, because I'm not sure how that would be interpreted by other divisions and scholars working in those other divisions. They may not make sense of what that specific strategic goal would be for that kind of panel, would be to try to promote IE work that is not just looking at health, but is looking at how health is connected with criminal justice systems, with education, how these things are kind of connected.
You got it. I think I'll add that as our third one, and then put the health work one that Matthew Strang proposed as a co-sponsor, because we typically do co-sponsor with health, the health division. Marge?
Well, I was just thinking about co-sponsorships, since that's one of the practical issues in getting these sessions approved. And I was thinking that that session on decolonization and that Cheryl was talking about might possibly be co-sponsored with racial and ethnic minorities, where it doesn't fit perfectly, or maybe with conflict, social action, and change, which, I don't, in the past, maybe hasn't had a lot of sessions of its own, so might be open to co-sponsorship. And, I think in some ways the co-sponsorships that we propose often work well because we can kind of direct who's going to chair the session, and then we have a little more, you know, ability to shape it, both in the description and in the selection of papers. I was also, as Eric was talking, I was thinking, you know, that could conceivably be a session that would be co-sponsored with social problems theory. Just, I mean, I think it would be ideal if it could be our own session, but social problems theory is kind of there as a fairly undefined space that we could use maybe. So those were just my thoughts. I just pulled up the list of divisions, so I've been trying to think how this is all going to work and how we can get the most sessions.
Totally, all 23 of them. Before I go to you, Jim, I want to say we already met as division chairs about next year's conference, and I have really good relationships with about 10 of them. And I didn't give them any specifics. I didn't make any commitments, but they're waiting to hear from us. They already all met, actually. I think all of them except maybe one had their meetings. So pretty much we have opportunities in 10 different divisions. I'll name them in a second. But I forgot to mention one thing. One division that was really excited about partnering with us was Poverty, Class, and Inequality. I don't know if I mentioned this. And their working title is on reimagining power and labor. And so that's pretty broad. And they wanted IE to be with them and on that particular topic. And I just wanted to throw that out there before I jump over to you, Jim.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm going to have to leave in a few minutes, but it's been good to listen. And I have a more fundamental question, really, and that is, what is the current moment for IE? What is the moment that we're in, and what is the momentum that we're trying to achieve? So it's been interesting listening to colleagues, because it seems to me that if I was able to theme aspects of the conversation, it's around what one of the big things for me, what I is about, and that's social justice. And so is part of the question about the momentum for us around these questions of what IE contributes to social justice, broadly defined. But sorry, colleagues, it's just, it's maybe a bit of a query to leave you with as I go, and perhaps that's not fair. But I wonder if one of the things we need to grapple with is, where are we now? What is our moment, and what momentum are we trying to achieve?
That's a good, what I call, knowledge bomb that you're going to drop on us before you head out.
James, I would say that the session on social activism could, in fact, be tied to this issue of social justice. I mean, that's a concern that I think a lot of IEers have, of social justice. And some have argued that institutional ethnography in itself does not necessarily take you to that level of activism and social justice by which you would like to be involved, okay? And so I think that this is to focus that session on social justice and activism, I think would be an important contribution that IE can contribute to that, the issues of social justice through, attention to the way things are happening, okay? And how you can intercede in that process by virtue of what you've learned from institutional ethnographic research. So I don't think it's a bomb. I think it's an important question.
Go for it, Eric.
Okay, thanks. I'm sorry, because I'm going to leave right after this. Maybe, oh, is Jim still there? Yeah, maybe the kind of question that Jim is posing, maybe that should be like a panel, right? Like, where is IE going? What is its future? What is its momentum? And you could, stage it so that there'd be different people from different perspectives who could speak to that question in different ways, right? Because there are obviously various different ways of thinking about that question and how to answer it. So just a thought that it might be that that's something that could be brought to a panel itself as a question that would be explored. That could be one of those, when people talk to each other, like not the formal panel, but the whatever that thing is called, the little ones, or the short time, we get 5 minutes, whatever. Maybe something like that could be interesting, And anyways, I'm sorry, I do have to leave, but it was very nice to see you all, and thank you.
Bye, thanks. Janet.
Thanks. I liked Eric's last idea. I think of the SSSP and this focus on activism, but also the chapter that Liza has in the handbook and the conversations that I have with Liza around IE as a sociology and the kind of work that perhaps doesn't necessarily have as much activist foundation. I mean, I always think about her work with square dancing that I just find so incredibly interesting, and how she's taking up IE in just social settings that perhaps aren't linked as fully to an activist intention. And for me, I think there's so much potential in relation to the momentum for IE and where it can take researchers. And so I was also thinking of the IE session and the momentum as a place where people could start to present work that is unconventional in the IE world.
Can you say more about that? The unconventional in the IE world?
Yeah, I mean, it's when I talk to Liza and when I read her paper, she's really grounded in this IE of a social ontology, but she is not necessarily as committed to texts as the material tracing, so that every IE doesn't necessarily have to include texts. And she's currently working with a PhD student whose name has currently left my head, who's looking at the Armenian genocide through storytelling, and how the Armenian diaspora around the world has, through an oral tradition and various other material ways of generating a community memory about the genocide. And it's really fascinating to see how this work is being done in the absence of the sort of the traditional text and text mapping. So that kind of work, I think, is part of the momentum that is going to keep IE alive sort of in sociology, even though I'm not a sociologist. But I see a lot of, it excites me when I talk to Liza about how she's sparking around these various approaches to IE. I haven't articulated that very well.
And one thing I'm just noticing is that it seems like a real mainstay in the conference program has always been this New Directions in IE panel. That's been one of our core ones, and that hasn't come up yet. So I wonder if, I wonder what people think about that. And I just wonder if the sort of questions that Jim and Janet and Eric have posed might fit within a New Directions in IE panel that is maybe the call is a little bit more specific or a little bit more directive than it has been in years past, where we're interested in new directions in IE, and particularly to the types of questions that Jim and Janet have posed for us today.
Well, to me, Jim's and Janet's questions are a little bit different, but I had been thinking earlier that, you know, we usually try to have some panels that are organized around topics where we know we have a lot of work, like healthcare or education. But I was thinking we might need a space for something like unusual topics or unusual topics and approaches, or I mean, you know, you can kind of make that whatever it becomes, but it would make space for that kind of thing Liza is doing that's more, you know, it's more kind of basic research on social organization or something is one way I think about some of what she does. And I agree, it's fascinating. So that would be one way to frame that. I see it as a little bit different from the New Directions, because to me, New Directions kind of means, you know, the latest thing in what we do. And this would kind of be like some interesting stuff that we're not always doing.
How about something like exploring the social? In a certain sense, that's, you know, Liza's chapter is about the social. You know, exploring the social in new ways, or exploring the social, you know, something like that, a session like that. You know, Marge, also your suggestion about, you know, moving to co-sponsorships, I was even thinking that the social justice one might be co-sponsored with conflict, social action, and change. And that's one way in which we could include, you know, a more generic session as part of what we are supporting. So I would be happy to explore, or Lanisha, if you could explore whether they at this conflict, social action, and change could be moved in terms of the session on social justice and activism as a co-sponsor, and you know, that could happen, seems to me, and move something like Eric's and your suggestion, Marge, with, I'm sorry, I'm pointing to where you are. That's great. So you're up in my right-hand corner, Marge, when I go like that. Anyway, trying to make it, you know, more like you're here in person in the rain.
So is it like exploring the social organization of knowledge in new ways, or is it not so much about the social organization of knowledge part, or the social, and then we know what that means, but I guess I'm just asking, is it something more specific? I like that title, Suzanne, where you're heading, but what aspect of the social?
I think exploring the social is nice because it leaves it really open. And then, you know, we usually produce a description, so we could say more about what that means. But that's just my reaction. I think it's a great title.
I agree. I like exploring the social because it does leave it open.
Got it. Frank, I don't know if you wanted to say something else. Where did Frank Risty?
Oh yeah, I just before Eric left. So I like exploring the social too, because it leaves that very open-ended, and it's so, it evokes wording that we've used in IE. Before Eric had to leave, he and I were also chatting about whether it would be popular to have a session on publishing, i.e. research, that took up questions of some of the challenges of publishing in different types of venues, journals, books, community reports. I know that's been something that graduate students in particular and new faculty have often talked about wanting support in that area. And I know, Eric, and some of you are involved in, a UT book series, and so there's different ways, and I've done some work with local reports, and I'm curious as what other people have done with community reports and stuff like that recently, so this might be a way to talk about the texts that we produce. I realize we don't have a lot of IE only sessions left. We don't have any IE only sessions left, but maybe in our back pocket.
Could that be expanded to funding and publishing IE research?
Yep. Yeah, I think it could. Yeah.
Could that also be something that could be connected to the sort of how-to session, that you'd have some folks who are maybe earlier on in their careers and sort of at the beginning stages of formulating a design for a dissertation? You could have other folks who are more experienced researchers who are grappling with sort of publication questions and more knowledge output sort of issues.
Mm-hmm.
On the topic of research IE, I was thinking something like possibilities with IE, that where we could team with another division that isn't IE to kind of accentuate difference in a way that is interesting to people who have done IE research, maybe straddle a couple of different disciplines and are less we call it purist. But I've been sort of thinking about this more and more, just as people who are less familiar with IE have questions about how it takes place, and then folks who have done IE work and who are kind of pushing the envelope of what that looks like anyway. And I don't know what division would go well with this, but I'd love to have like a contrast, because it's nice to be IE specific and focused, but it is also nice to have something that's obviously not IE, like, I don't know, a typical grounded theory paper or something like this that is on a topic that IE would care about, but they take it up so differently that the distinction makes it very clear. So it's like, these are possibilities of institutional investigations or something like this. That's just one idea I had as we were talking.
I'm very sorry to do this, because all these ideas are so interesting and so important, and discussion is so great, but I'm just recognizing that we're coming up to the limit, or our sort of stated time period, and we still have a couple of agenda items left. So I'm just wondering if this is a good point to maybe sort of recap what our understanding is of what the core IE panels are, and we start trying to fill in who will co-sponsor with for those other 7.
Yes, I think, and also to get names to move the ideas forward. So I would be happy to put my name in front of the health work session. And then once it's organized in terms of a co-sponsor for that, you can let me know and I can partner with the other div.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for that, Janet.
Cheryl, do I have you down correctly for this panel that you suggested? to be potentially co-sponsored?
Yes, and I'm thinking, well, I would have a preference, I think, for conflict, social action, and change, but I don't want to foreclose that other idea that maybe was partnering with that division as well. Racial and ethnic minorities doesn't work that well for me from the Indigenous standpoint. Yeah. So if there's still room for it without taxing the other division, I'm certainly prepared to go with that.
Okay. We have also IE and social justice and activism. I'm not sure about the title, but Suzanne, I have you down for that to potentially be co-sponsored with conflict, social action, and change.
So I'm going to ask, is that either the two Franks, would either one of you like to be involved in organizing this? We could all three do it, you know, if that would work for you.
Yeah, I'm happy to.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do it together.
Okay, so put all three of our names down.
Awesome. And yeah, mapping intersections across institutions. Eric and Colin, are you both doing that together, or is Eric going to head that up as an organizer?
Eric said he wants to do that completely independently and do all the work on that. No, I
was like, wow.
We can do that together.
Okay, awesome. And then I think I want to circle back on the other ones, and I'll send a recap email pretty quickly, like by tonight or tomorrow in the morning, so that other folks can watch this and then give feedback in writing as well. The last two items, or only other item, is around the IE podcast. It was approved for funding, and we have about 15 people who've expressed interest in being on this kind of committee to talk about what that would look like, how it would function. I think the operating idea right now is that we'd have it split up in seasons, and the seasons would be topic specific. That's all I know at this moment. And I think we're doing it as an international effort. There's Orla in England, there's Sophie in Australia. I haven't talked to Frank, but Frank, you were on my list, and some folks in Canada and folks in the US. There's somebody randomly in Latin America. And we, like, these people on the committee have all these amazing ideas. I think the idea of seasons works because you can have one theme that's explored through 13 or 15 different episodes. And that's all I have for that agenda item. We're gonna meet as a committee in the fall. It's looking like. I'm still coordinating on dates in a couple of those tricky time zones. But once I have that, then we can keep moving forward. I think that was it outside of the open floor. Did any folks have other ideas or last minute things to note? Suzanne Vaughn has her hand raised, and yeah, you're muted.
Okay, so my interest has to do with how many members we have and things like that. So are we growing as a division? Does anyone have any numbers on that? That's my question.
Yeah, I have the numbers on that. I think in the transition meeting that I'm going to have with Colin, we were going to go over all that. We lost quite a few, but I think we're back up to 250, around 250 members. I don't know what that means offhand in relationship to all of these other divisions. But yeah, I do have that information. I don't have it at the forefront of my mind. And then on the topic of funding, we have $6,000 in the bank for That's a result of all of the years of the IE workshops, and I think that's the main generator of funds for us. So that money can be used for bringing, like, asking for additional funds to bring folks from wherever for a session, like we talked about earlier. When we do have the IE workshop, for speakers to be supported and other members to be supported with that money. I don't think even the podcast is going to touch that budget, since we're getting that money, that project paid for by the division, or by Triple SP. So yeah, but I'm going to share all that with Colin. And I think if we do have an before the next annual meeting, we can showcase some of that information to kind of give you a sense of what's the status, how are we doing, and so on and so forth. Did I answer your question, Suzanne? Cool. Any final words, thoughts before we close out? Thank you all so much for joining us. If you have any ideas, any thoughts, any suggestions, just shoot me and Colin an email. And yeah, we'll be in touch. And it was so wonderful to see everybody, and see you at the next meeting here.
Thanks, Lanisha, for all your work. And it's
Thank you
lovely
so
to
much,
see
Lanisha.
everybody.
Great to see you all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
See some of you next week in the sessions.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.